Welcome back to Hello Africa broadcast channel. Egypt's siege on Ethiopia and the battle for the Nile's future. Egypt is intensifying its strategy to encircle Ethiopia by forging alliances and strengthening its presence along the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, aiming to restrict Ethiopia's access to the sea and secure control over key maritime trade routes like the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This strategic waterway is vital for global energy flows, connecting the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean via the Suez Canal, and any disruption here would have significant economic consequences for Egypt and the broader region. Egypt's recent meetings, including high-level talks between President al-Sisi and Djibouti's Ismail Omar Guelleh, underscore Cairo's commitment to securing these trade routes and deepening cooperation with Djibouti, which sits at the southern gate of the Red Sea. Egypt's encirclement policy began with Sudan, Eritrea, and Somalia, and has now extended to Djibouti. Cairo has long viewed Ethiopia's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD, as an existential threat to its Nile water supply, and it has consistently sought to limit Ethiopia's regional progress and influence. In previous years, Egypt made repeated attempts to halt Ethiopia's dam project, even though Ethiopia was funding it independently to advance its own economy. Egypt's actions are often seen as driven by envy and a desire to limit Ethiopia's progress, rather than by a purely existential threat. This is further evidenced by Egyptian leaders' historical threats and the country's refusal to revisit colonial-era water agreements that heavily favor Egypt, despite Ethiopia contributing the lion's share of the Nile's water. To this end, Egypt has supported Somalia and Eritrea in their disputes with Ethiopia, leveraging every disagreement to isolate Addis Ababa diplomatically. When Ethiopia attempted to secure port access in Somaliland, Egypt quickly escalated the issue, holding meetings with Somali and Eritrean officials to form a united front against Ethiopia's ambitions. Egypt has been adept at playing its cards, supporting Somalia and Eritrea in every minor dispute with Ethiopia, and using these alliances to box in Ethiopia from all sides. However, Egypt's maneuvers come with risks for its partners. By aligning closely with Egypt, Somalia and Eritrea risk becoming battlegrounds for a conflict that ultimately serves Egyptian interests more than their own. Egypt is well aware that if war breaks out, it could spill over into the territories of its allies, making them the first line of defense and, in a sense, the Trojan horses for Egypt's strategic aims. Despite this, Egypt continues to push its agenda, knowing that the cost of conflict will initially be borne by its neighbors rather than by itself. Turkey, pursuing its own economic interests in the Horn of Africa and seeking to be a good partner to the region, has tried to caution Somalia against being drawn into Egypt's orbit. Turkey has attempted to open Somalia's eyes to the risk of being used by Egypt for petty disagreements and warned of the dangers of importing Egypt's conflicts into Somali territory. However, Egypt has managed to secure significant influence over Somalia's maritime security, with the administration in Mogadishu reportedly ceding control in this domain. Egypt also continues to benefit from high-level intelligence support from powerful external actors, which, though sometimes interrupted, has been largely sustained. At the same time, Turkey's diplomatic efforts have yielded significant results. Turkey not only warned against external manipulation, but also actively mediated between Ethiopia and Somalia, leading to a breakthrough peace deal. On December 12, 2024, under Turkish facilitation, Ethiopia and Somalia signed a joint declaration in Ankara to resolve their dispute over Somaliland and Ethiopia's access to the Red Sea, with both leaders expressing gratitude to President Erdogan for his role. This agreement reaffirmed respect for each country's sovereignty and committed both sides to technical negotiations for secure and sustainable sea access for Ethiopia, with Turkey's ongoing support. The peace process has been welcomed as a historic reconciliation, marking a turning point in regional relations and celebrated by both nations as a milestone for stability and cooperation. Turkey's mediation not only prevented the escalation of Egypt-initiated tensions, but also strengthened its own strategic and economic partnership in the Horn of Africa. Eritrea, meanwhile, is exposing its population of 3 million to danger by allowing its territory to become a potential war zone for Egypt's strategic goals. Eritrean authorities appear to understand the stakes and have prepared accordingly, reportedly organizing extremist elements within Ethiopia, particularly in the Tigray and Amhara regions, to destabilize the country from within and provide backup for Egyptian interests. In Tigray, some officials are beginning to recognize this dynamic and are trying to push the conflict out of their territory by opposing Eritrean involvement. Nevertheless, others remain blinded by their own power and interests, aligning with Eritrea and risking their people's lives by allowing their land to become a proxy battleground for Egypt. Extremist elements in Ethiopia's Oromia and Amhara regions are also believed to be acting on the advice and funding of their external backers, further fueling internal chaos and creating additional war zones. This manipulation by outside powers is deepening Ethiopia's internal divisions and making it more vulnerable to external pressure. As a result, Ethiopia, once seen as the stabilizing motherland of the Horn of Africa, now finds itself surrounded by a complex web of regional rivalries and outside interference. The country's encirclement is a testament to the increasingly complicated geopolitics of the Horn of Africa, where local disputes are often magnified by the involvement of powerful external actors. Yet, despite internal disagreements and political challenges, Ethiopians are known for their unity in the face of external threats. There is a strong sense of patriotism and resilience among the people, and a widely held belief that those who act unjustly against Ethiopia will ultimately face consequences. As the saying goes, anyone who touched Ethiopia unfairly will not have a bad ending. All the countries surrounding Ethiopia were formed as a result of divide-and-rule policies, and all of them are part of one family with no real differences, gaining little from independence except exposing their youth to suffering, migration, or continued control by colonial powers and entanglement in internal proxy wars with their neighbors. It is time for Eritrea, Sudan, Somalia, and Djibouti to reflect on what has been gained since so-called independence, accept many problems by being apart from their own brothers and sisters. Being divided by the design of colonialists makes them weaker, and if united, that is when they could achieve a better life for their citizens, sharing and supporting each other as part of Ethiopian progress, rather than allowing a selfish few politicians to sell them out as Trojan horses to outside interests. When Ethiopia tries to approach the truth, it is accused of promoting expansionist narratives, with calls for AU member states to condemn what is described as a dangerous misrepresentation. The incident revives long-standing suspicions about Ethiopia's ambitions in the region, particularly as Addis Ababa has historically viewed parts of Eritrea as rightfully Ethiopian, despite Eritrea's internationally recognized independence. The controversy also comes amid heightened tensions over Ethiopia's efforts to secure sea access, a sensitive issue that has already strained relations with its neighbors. So, what Ethiopians mean by being unfairly dealt with is that while Egypt is concerned and deals with water that is originally 85% sourced in Ethiopia, Ethiopia is forced to be restricted from access to ports it has used for centuries. In this tense and evolving situation, the stakes are high not just for Ethiopia, but for the entire region. The encirclement strategy being pursued by Egypt could lead to further instability, proxy conflicts, and suffering for ordinary people in neighboring countries. The Horn of Africa, already one of the world's most volatile regions, is at risk of becoming even more complicated as outside powers continue to pursue their own interests at the expense of local stability and development. The coming months and years will be critical in determining whether Ethiopia can break out of this encirclement and chart its own course, or whether it will remain at the center of a dangerous geopolitical chess game. The battle for the Nile is far from over. What side do you take? Should Ethiopia have the right to develop its resources? Or does Egypt's survival justify its hardline stance? Let us know in the comments. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our Hello Africa YouTube channel and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into global conflicts. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.